So thank you for the invitation to talk to you. South African Faith and Family Institute was started in 2008 with the expressed purpose of coming alongside faith leaders and faith communities to strengthen faith leaders' capacity to be able to respond to individuals and families who experience intimate partner abuse. And SAFI is particularly concerned around the faith dimensions of violence against women, because when you look at throughout history, and since we've started to work on this issue of violence against women, most of the focus has been really from the perspective of the criminal justice system. And so you would have lots of legislation, there's a lot of government interventions and civil society interventions. But if you look at the context, especially in a country like South Africa, where 90% of the population affiliates or ascribe to some religion or faith practice or a multi-faith context, and you look at the statistics when it comes to violence against women, 1 in every 4 women finds herself in an abusive relationship. Every 26 seconds a woman is raped. The list goes on and on and on. You're really sitting with a conundrum, because you're wondering what is going on. If this is a people of faith, in essence, how is it possible that there can be so much violence? And then, of course, what is the role of faith and what is the role of faith leaders in all of this? And so that is really where SAFI comes in. I think we have to also understand the context and the history of South Africa within the context of apartheid, colonialism, and all of that, where this country was colonized, apartheid was infused and reinforced using faith, using religious scriptures and teachings. And so, so exactly when SAFI speaks about addressing violence against women in the South African context and dealing with faith, we are saying you cannot address any social justice issue in this country without talking about the impact of apartheid. And you cannot talk about the impact of apartheid without talking about what is the role that faith has played. Now, while faith and religious teachings was used to justify systems of oppression like apartheid, there was also quite a strong resistance movement, and faith leaders played an incredible role. Muslims, Christians, multi-faith sector that really resisted to say that this is not, in fact, what our faith is about. And so faith played quite a critical role in dismantling and interrupting, oppression through apartheid. And so what we are saying, we have to talk about faith. For as long as religious leaders, in fact, everybody, Maulana, they know exactly how I talk about this, but I often speak about, we have called everybody to account for the violence against women. We've called government to account. We have called civil society, the police, justice system, everybody to account for the violence against women. And the question is, have we called our faith leaders to account for the violence against women? I think our faith leaders called themselves to account during apartheid, and hence they rallied together. There were lots of differences, different faiths, right? But the one thing that they all knew is that God, in fact, did not create any human being to be superior to another human being. And all human beings are sacred and they have dignity and worth. And so I think that's exactly what we're bringing into when we talk about violence against women, because that's the next huge issue in this country and in the world that we have to address. And we've actually said unless men and women reconcile and there's peace and justice and harmony between men and women, most of our efforts to try and bring peace and harmony into the world cannot happen. I mean, I think it's important to note that in the research that we have done, even prior to establishing SAFI, we've done extensive research, over a decade's worth of research, because we wanted to figure out where else in the world, who is doing this work with religious leaders in particular. And it was very interesting to discover through my research that religious leaders across the globe, they are not necessarily being prepared and trained through their training institutions and even their faith institutions in terms of how to deal with violence against women. And so, and also through our research, religious leaders have been specific in terms of, if there was training for them, what would be some of the things that would be really important. And so since our inception in 2008, we have seen some incredible response from religious leaders, and I really want to acknowledge especially the Muslim Judicial Council, the Muslim religious leaders, across the board, for the way that they've come alongside and really stepped in together with other faith leaders from other... SAFI has a number of activities or strategies, that we've used. One of those relates to just having sacred conversation, where we just bring together religious leaders from different faiths to talk about the faith dimensions of violence against women. And when we say faith dimensions, we talk specifically around what are some of those easily misinterpreted scriptures and teachings from all the different religions, right? So in every faith you will find that perpetrators use certain teachings and scriptures to justify their abuse. And so these forums, where we have these sacred conversations and dialogues, we lift that up for religious leaders and begin to say, so if it's a Muslim woman of deep faith, these are some of the scriptures and teachings that she struggles with, right? In my work with perpetrators, there will be some scriptures and teachings that perpetrators would just use, this is my role, God expects this of me. And so then we say to religious leaders, now we cannot ask the magistrate or the social worker or the police to clarify those scriptures. You are the only ones that can do this, right? And so I think, those have been really robust processes, and I think it's almost like something that we didn't necessarily, not that we didn't expect it, but that wasn't our initial, sort of objective. But it's amazing how faith leaders, when they sit together, and even from different religions, how on another level there's a unity that begins to form. Because although they are different in their beliefs, this issue is what brings them together, because all of them are struggling with the same thing.